Congratulations, you're a Dulcibella camanchaca. You were just discovered in 2023, literally 1 year ago, living 26,000 feet deep in the Atacama Trench. Sounds groundbreaking, right? Like you're an exciting new species that's going to change science. Wrong. You're a predatory amphipod the size of a gummy bear that spent millions of years in complete obscurity just to be discovered, given a fancy name, and then immediately ignored by everyone except 3 marine biologists who wrote 1 paper about you. Welcome to your 15 minutes of fame that nobody noticed. Okay, so you're born. You're a baby Dulcibella camanchaca, somewhere near the absolute bottom of the Atacama Trench off the coast of Chile and Peru. And right away, you realize you've been dealt the worst hand imaginable. You live at 7,902 meters deep. The pressure is 790 times what it is at sea level. That's enough to crush a car into a tin can. The temperature is just above freezing. There's barely any oxygen. And it's so dark that light is literally a concept that doesn't apply to your life. You're living in what scientists call an extreme environment, which is code for biological hell where almost nothing can survive. And you're about 4 centimeters long. You're tiny. You're smaller than a battery. You could fit in a shot glass with room to spare. You look like a pale, translucent shrimp that someone stretched out and forgot to add color to. You've got long, spindly legs. Your body is segmented like you're made of connected pieces. You're basically see-through. You look like a ghost shrimp that gave up on life. And here's the kicker. You're a predator? That's right. You actively hunt other organisms. Except you're hunting in the darkest place on Earth as a creature the size of a paperclip. God looked at you and said, let's make a tiny hunter, put it in the most extreme location possible, and see if it survives. And if it does, let's make sure nobody knows about it for millions of years. The name mockery. Let's talk about your ridiculous name, because even that is an insult. Dulcibella camanchaca. First, Dulcibella comes from Latin meaning sweetly beautiful. The scientists who discovered you literally looked at your pale, spindly, translucent body and thought, it's sweet and beautiful. You're a predatory crustacean living in hell, and they're calling you sweet. It's like calling a prison cell a cozy studio apartment. And camanchaca. That's from indigenous languages of the Andes region, specifically Quechua and Aymara, and it means darkness or dense fog that comes from the ocean. So your full name is Sweet Beautiful Darkness Fog. You're a tiny predator living 5 miles underwater in crushing pressure and freezing temperatures, and you're named like a scented candle at a boutique gift shop. Oh yes, I'll take 3 Sweet Beautiful Darkness Fog candles for my bathroom, please. The scientists who discovered you in 2023 were Johanna Weston and her team from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. They sent down a deep sea lander with cameras and traps to 7,902 meters. And when they pulled you up, they were probably so excited to discover a new species that they gave you the most poetic name possible. Except you're not poetic. You're a nightmare shrimp eating other creatures in the void. You deserved a name like Abyssal Deathclaw, or Trench Terror, or at least Tiny Scary Thing. But no, Sweet Beautiful Fog, that's you. But surely being a predator in the Hadal Zone means you've got some incredible hunting adaptations, right? Surely you're a finely tuned killing machine. Nope, not really. You're just a slightly aggressive shrimp with decent reflexes and absolutely zero backup plan. The predator failure. Let's talk about your hunting strategy, because it's basically hope and luck with extra steps. You're a predator, but you're predating in an environment where prey is incredibly scarce. Down at 26,000 feet, there's almost nothing to eat. Most of the food chain relies on marine snow, dead organic matter slowly drifting down from the surface. But you're not a scavenger. You're actively hunting live prey, except the prey options are 1. Other tiny amphipods, 2. Microscopic organisms, 3. Whatever else is desperate enough to live down here. You're hunting in a desert. An underwater food desert where meals are separated by potentially hours or days of searching. And you're hunting tools. You've got specialized raptorial appendages, basically fancy claws designed to grab and hold prey. Sounds cool until you realize you're using them to catch things that are also tiny and probably just as desperate as you. You're not an apex predator. You're a desperate micro predator fighting over scraps in the dark. Oh, and because you're so small and the environment is so extreme, you probably have an incredibly slow metabolism. Which means, even when you do catch something, it barely gives you enough energy to survive another few days of floating in the void hoping for your next meal. You're living paycheck to paycheck, except the paycheck is own tiny amphipod every 3 days, and the bills are literally just staying alive in crushing pressure. And let's talk about your predators. Because yes, even you get hunted. Deep sea fish, larger amphipods. Anything that's hungry enough and big enough will eat you without hesitation. And your defense, you're translucent. That's it. You're hoping that being see-through in pitch black darkness somehow helps you hide. Except there's no light anyway, so being translucent is basically useless. It's like wearing camouflage pants in a room with no windows. Sure, technically you're camouflage, but nobody can see anyway. But surely being discovered just last year means you're about to become famous. right? Surely scientists are going to study you extensively and unlock the secrets of hadal zone predation. Nope, you're already being forgotten. Because studying you is insanely expensive and you're not interesting enough to justify the cost. The scientific neglect. Let's talk about your discovery and why it doesn't matter. You were discovered in November 2023 during the 2023 Atacama Trench expedition. Scientists used a hadal lander, basically a metal frame with cameras and traps that they dropped to the ocean floor. It took hours for the lander to sink down to your level. They left it there for hours more to collect specimens. Then they pulled it back up, which took hours again. All of that effort. All of that expensive equipment. All of that time. And what did they get? You. A tiny amphipod that looks like every other hadal amphipod, but slightly different. They described you as a new species. They published a paper in 2024. They gave you a pretty name. And then, nothing. Because here's what scientists don't know about you. Your exact lifespan, your reproductive behavior, your population size, your ecological impact, how you've specifically adapted to extreme pressure. What you eat most often, how you find prey in complete darkness, whether you have any unique sensory abilities. Basically, they know you exist. You're a predator, and you live really deep. That's it. That's the extent of human knowledge. And here's the brutal truth. They probably won't learn much more. Because going back down to 26,000 feet costs hundreds of thousands of dollars per expedition. You need specialized ships, ROVs or landers, expert crews, permits time, and funding agencies aren't exactly lining up to throw money at. Let's study a 1/6-inch shrimp that lives in the Atacama Trench. That's not a sexy research proposal. That's not going to cure cancer or solve climate change or discover alien life. You're scientifically interesting, sure, but you're not important enough to justify the expense. So you're going to remain a mystery. Not because you're fascinating, but because you're too expensive to care about. The competition disaster. And here's the thing that makes you extra pathetic. You're not even unique. Hadal zone, depths below 6,000 meters, has been explored in trenches all over the world. The Mariana Trench, the Kermadec Trench, the Japan Trench, the Tonga Trench, and you know what scientists find in every single one? Amphipods. Lots of them. Different species, sure, but they're all basically tiny shrimp, like creatures doing the same thing you're doing. Some are scavengers, some are predators, some are a mix, but they're all small, pale, and living in extreme conditions. You're not special. You're not the first hadal predator discovered. You're not the deepest. You're not the largest. You're just another amphipod in another trench. You're the biological equivalent of finding a new Starbucks in a city that already has 50 of them. Oh cool. Another one. Anyway, and your predatory nature, even that isn't unique. There are other predatory amphipods in other trenches. You didn't evolve some revolutionary new hunting method. You're just doing what amphipods have been doing for millions of years, except you're doing it in the Atacama Trench instead of somewhere else. You're a regional variant of a creature that's already been documented elsewhere. You're the McDonald's menu that's slightly different in different countries, technically unique, but functionally the same. Fancy Latin name, one scientific paper, and then eternal obscurity. You're living proof that being discovered doesn't mean being important.